Hello, this is the Astrologos Online Astrology School and I'm Dr. Darylyn Gunsberg. This short video is an overview of the first module in the Reading Charts teaching videos. And if you're watching this video, it's because you want to know who you are and what makes you tick, what makes you operate in the world, what makes you understand yourself better, what you seek in terms of job satisfaction, and who you seek in terms of a life partner. One way of doing this is by learning about your natal horoscope using Western astrology techniques. And that's what this module is all about. But before we go very much further, I want to ask you a question. You might not know the answer, but it's something that is important to think about. And it's, what do we think we're doing when we're reading a natal horoscope? Because if you know the answer to that, then you'll be able to read it with clearer focus and better clarity. It's a question that interests me deeply, and so I asked fellow astrologers what they thought they were doing when they read a chart. Some astrologers think that it's a map that leads to a deeper self or other awareness, as if there are places that they need to find inside themselves, and by looking at a horoscope, they can travel down certain pathways, certain routes, to find those places. Other astrologers say that it's like being given a mirror, that they can look into this and they can see their deepest reflections. Still, other astrologers describe it as deciphering the DNA of a person, something that makes us human, makes us distinctive. Still others talk about it as decoding a soul's journey. But what version of a soul are we talking about here? Are we talking about Plato's version of the soul? Plato, for example, considered that the soul was formed by the divine, and a spark of the divine was placed into each individual. Plato's soul carried both reason and a sense of what is up to us, and the responsibility of the soul was to seek a union with the world soul. Aristotle, on the other hand, was more focused into the material world, and he thought that the soul was the life force, and that it was a tool by which humanity reached perfection. There are many other versions of soul, but if you think that this is what reading a natal chart is about, then it's good to be clear on your version of the soul. Other astrologers say that the chart represents the potential of the person, and this opinion suggests the chart shows what a person can become. This idea is very much that propagated by Dane Rudhyar, who thought that the chart contained the seeds of a person and that we had a responsibility to grow that seed to its best expression. Other astrologers say that it's symbolic of our unique talents and resources, that which is psychological, emotional, and spiritual. These are what some astrologers think that you can find from a chart. Now it's over to you. What do you think you can read from a natal chart? You might not know immediately, as I said before, but it's worth thinking about. And if you think that you might not be able to read a natal horoscope using Western astrology techniques, then let me give you some clues to find out if you can. Do you stare into fires? Are you someone who looks at a fire and sees shapes in the flames? Or maybe you prefer to look at clouds and to see the shapes that are formed by the cloud formations. For example, I can see a horse here, and I can also see a bird. What can you see? Are you someone who enjoys tea and seeing in the tea leaves at the bottom of the cup shapes and figures and formations? Are you someone who enjoys doing jigsaw puzzles? Can you pick up a piece of the jigsaw puzzle and look at the half-formed pattern and find the space that that slots into? Or are you someone who is very aware of synchronicities? Do you think of someone and then almost immediately you hear the phone and it's them? Or have you ever started a job on a particular day and then realized that you started another job very similar to this exactly a year before? If any of these are things that you do, then you are someone who can read natal charts, because reading a natal chart is learning to read patterns. But just as you wouldn't build a house without first designing it on paper with a plan and working out all the logistics and finding out the materials that you needed to build something that was sturdy and strong or would withhold the test of time, so chart reading is exactly the same. You can't read charts unless you've got a firm technique. So reading natal charts is built on a set of planetary techniques that gives your chart reading substance and depth. Those techniques are what we'll be covering in this first module, and they are planets and signs. Planets don't see the zodiac equally. Each planet and each luminary sees the zodiac signs as if it's in a different type of landscape. Some are swampy, some is firm, some is urban, some is domestic, some is woodland. And we'll be looking at those in the first lesson of this module. In the second lesson, we'll be recognizing that where a planet or a luminary sits in the chart gives it strength. We'll also be learning about house rulerships, and that is that a planet that sits in a zodiac sign also connects with another zodiac sign, rather like a landlord who owns real estate. We'll also be looking at the relationship between your sun and your moon and finding out what that means for you. Furthermore, we'll be looking at personal planetary combinations. What does it mean to have your sun connecting with, say, Pluto or Saturn? What does it mean to have your moon connecting with Mars or Mercury? These are individual planetary combinations, but there's also planetary combinations that connect us with our generation, and we'll be looking at those planetary combinations as well. And then there's the way that the planets connect with each other. Some do it through a sense of stress or tension, and that means that it forces us out into the world to find out how to use it. Other aspects which glue the planets together describe your resources, your talents. There's an ease and a flow between them. And as we join these together, we'll be looking at the tensions within a single aspect. And that single aspect will tell us the story or the narrative that's occurred for you through time. Some of those story narratives occur very, very early in your life, and they are built up over time, and they describe you as you are now. But they give you options for changing, and we'll look at some of those options when we look at the story narrative. We'll also be looking at the ascendant. The ascendant is the face you show to the world before you let anyone see anything else about you. And the planet that rules the ascendant and the aspect that it makes tells you a great deal about what your primary drive is. Once we've done that, we can start to put all those little bits and pieces together, and we can form a pattern just from a single aspect. So reading a single aspect is complex because you are complex. But if you can do it for a single aspect, then you'll be able to do it for the whole chart over time as we work through the lesson. Sound exciting? It is, because each of these techniques tells you something different about you. We'll be working through each of these techniques in the 12 lessons that comprise this module. This is lean forward technology. It's not about me telling you about you. It's about me helping you to see the patterns within that single aspect so that you can tell yourself about you based on your background and your history, your likes, your dislikes, and where you hope to be going. You'll be looking at how each of these techniques works in your chart, and you'll be surprised at what you learn. Excited? Keen to go? Great! See you in lesson 1.